world woke up this morning with the shocking news of a massive earthquake in Taiwan. The 7.2 magnitude quake hit Taiwan's Hualien city at 7:58 a.m. and shook everything on its way. Cars, buses, buildings, water bodies, humans. The visuals coming out of Taiwan were scary and extremely concerning. The quake has left 9 people dead so far and more than 900 have been injured. 26 buildings collapsed, 15 of them in the Hualien city, which was the epicenter. Contact with 50 people in a minibus at a national park was lost, and about 70 coal miners are still trapped. The quake caused 24 landslides and damage to 35 roads, bridges, and tunnels. At least 58 aftershocks followed, as per the US Geological Survey. The first responders, military aircraft, doctors, they were all pressed into action. Rescue and relief is still underway. Now, the earthquake was so mammoth that it was felt in Japan as well as in China's Shanghai, Hangzhou, and Xiamen. But here's the problem. Taiwan is a country that is not new to multiple earthquakes through the year owing to its geography. Yet, its early warning system did not work today. Many spoke about not getting any alarm or alert. Taiwan's government said the reason for this is that initially the quake did not reach 4.0 magnitude, which is when the alarm sets off. The question is, why wait till the quake gets stronger? And where do countries go wrong in dealing with a natural calamity like an earthquake? Now, before I get an answer to these questions, let me first straight away go across to Sana Hashmi, who lives in Taiwan, and she has been sharing her experience of the earthquake on social media. She's a fellow at the Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation. Sana, thank you very much for joining us on Mirror Now. First help us understand what exactly happened. The visuals that came out of Taiwan were extremely scary. They were concerning. But what exactly happened? Take us through that.
Yeah, then Taiwan is prone to earthquakes, so this is not something that is new. So this is one of the reasons why there is very resilient infrastructure. Buildings are resilient, as well as people are used to it. So people are calm whenever there is an earthquake. I have been here for 4 years, and I have also experienced a number of earthquakes, but today it was very different. The intensity and the duration was definitely stronger and longer. And of course, we have seen the impact. That was the strongest earthquake that we have experienced in Taiwan in 25 years. And when it happened in 1999 with similar intensity, there were a lot of casualty. There were at least over 2,500 casualties in the same place. The epicenter was Hualien. But today, the casualties were just 9 people. Of course, there are a number of injured people, but I think the casualties were limited to just 9 people. So definitely we are seeing the impact on the buildings, and how we saw there was landslide in Hualien, as well as there were a number of buildings that were a little tilted. So that's definitely very concerning and sad how people have lost their lives. But I feel the impact has been limited given the intensity of the earthquake.
Right, Sana, what was your first reaction? People around you, your friends, your neighbors, because this was a big, big earthquake.
As I already mentioned, that people do not really go out when there's an earthquake because it's a very common phenomenon here. But as in when it was 8 a.m. in the morning, it was very early. So most of the people were either at home getting ready for work, it was a weekday, or just outside commuting. So I think the reaction was very, I think people remained calm, even though it was a very fearful situation, but most of the people remained calm. We experienced aftershocks for at least 3-4 hours. I'm hearing that there were at least 35 aftershocks. So definitely it was scary, but then I think people remained calm, and it was business as usual after an hour. As in the metro, the high-speed train, it was halted for an hour just to be safe. But after an hour, everything was back to normal, of course, except the Hualien area where there were casualties and the impact was much higher than in Taipei. But definitely, I feel that it was business as usual. I think this also tells you the resilience of the people, the resilience of the government, and the swift response by the government, that it didn't really impact the other aspects of life, and how it was business as usual in Taipei and other areas.
And how far are you from the Hualien city, where, of course, the most damage has happened. It is the epicenter of the earthquake. How many of you actually are there, Indians, and how far are you guys from the Hualien city?
I'm in northern area, and Hualien is east coast. So
Yeah.
that's kind of more prone, and that's kind of the epicenter of several earthquakes that Taiwan has experienced. So it's not as far, specifically when you compare the area, the geography of India with Taiwan, but it's as in it's not like I'm near Hualien.
Right. Sana, one of the biggest concerns that has emerged out of this earthquake is the fact that the early warning system in Taiwan did not work properly. Many people have come out and said that they did not get the alerts before the earthquake. Did you get one, and what exactly happened there?
I didn't get an alert, and that was pretty shocking because we always get an alert before earthquake, like a few seconds before the earthquake. So then a lot of people are questioning the why it didn't happen this time. So what was the problem? Why it didn't happen? But I think this is not the primary concern. Sometimes it could happen, specifically when it comes to earthquake. But tsunami and all, you already have an idea that this is where the direction is. But I feel with earthquake, yeah, then people are very used to getting early warning alerts from the presidential office. So some people got it, most of the people didn't get it. I didn't get it. So I think this is something that the government has to look into what happened and why a lot of people didn't get the alert and some got an alert.
Right. Sana, one of the quickest responses that came in were from the Indian mission there in Taiwan. They've also taken out a helpline number for the Indians for any kind of assistance. Uh, uh, you know, Help us understand the kind of, responses and the feedback and the communication that you have been getting from the Indian mission there.
I think they've been very swift in the response. As in I think it was one of the first missions that put out a message and advisory for Indian nationals, and they were very alert. They were responding to messages. We are not a lot of people, residents. We are just 5,000 to 6,000 people, but there were some tourists. So, and specifically, Hualien is a major touristic area. So I think they also dispatched some of the Indian officials to the area to see if there are any Indians who are trapped there, to make sure that Indian nationals are safe in Hualien and other places. So they have been in touch with the Indian community since morning. The response is very swift. So I think I would definitely commend the swift response that the Indian embassy, the Indian de facto embassy, has been doing since morning. But apart from that, I feel that this is something that we have been seeing during Modi administration, that how there has been an impactful response and connection with respect to Indian diaspora outside. So I think this is just an offshoot policy of how Modi administration diaspora policy has been. And this is Indian embassy response in Taiwan has been reflective of that. But definitely, I would commend their response and how they have been responding and being swift towards messages of Indians who are living in Taiwan. And in fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also just posted about Taiwan, and he has also talked about how India stands with the resilience of resilient people of Taiwan. So I think this is something that is also very unprecedented. The response that we are seeing from the officials as well as the leadership of India is very different, is unprecedented, and I think this is something that we have to really appreciate.
Right. Have you been able to talk to your family? I'm sure they were worried here, family and friends back in India.
Very worried, specifically when they saw the news, but I got to talk to them and they're fine. Yeah, but of course they'd be worried, and specifically after seeing the visuals that are coming out of Hualien.
Yeah. All right. My last question to you, Sana, then, since Taiwan is so used to earthquakes, and even though this was a big one and there have been casualties, I'm sure the country now has a strategy to move ahead. Have you guys been given some sort of advisory on what to do, what not to do, what's the future course of action to deal with such a situation?
I think one of the things that Taiwan does is they establish a committee. I think this is one of the first things that they do, and I think this is something that they also did in the morning. And Then I think the next thing is to educate and make people aware what has happened, what is the situation on ground, the number of casualties. So I think one of the responses that I would definitely be very comfortable with, that resonate with the government, is that they want to make people aware what's happening, so that we know what's happening and we are not fearful, and we don't know what is happening. So what is the unknown? So I think this is something that the government has been doing, telling the people regularly with press conferences, with online messages, that this is what is happening and how many people have died, how many casualties are there. So I feel that apart from that, life is back to normal. There's nothing that we need to worry about in Taiwan as of now. So yeah, I think this is something that we really have to appreciate about the Taiwanese government as well, because I feel that they're very used to having earthquakes. So there's a robust system that's already in place. So what they have to do is just to activate that.
All right, we'll leave it there. Sana, Hashmi, thank you very much for joining us on Mirror Now and helping us understand, how you experienced this earthquake. Stay safe, all of you. Remember that we are all concerned here in India. But thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast tonight. All right, with that, let's also get in Mr. Harsh Gupta, earth scientist and seismologist, to help us understand better what exactly happened in Taiwan. Harsh Gupta, thank you very much. Good evening, sir, for joining us on Mirror Now. Let me first start by asking you, Mr. Gupta, can we now say that the worst is over for Taiwan, or do we still expect strong aftershocks after this big earthquake that hit Taiwan today?
Sure, a very good question. And aftershocks followed the 21st September 1999 Chichi earthquake, the previous earthquake which occurred 25 years ago. And aftershocks will follow this earthquake as well. And what happens, Shreya, that the structures which are already weakened by the main shock, they become more vulnerable to be affected by these aftershocks. However, as far as Taiwan is concerned, as they have followed the building codes very strictly and they have taken a lot of measures, so you will see that there were a lot of shaking, etc. But the number of buildings that collapsed was very few. You must also see that just 25 years ago, in a similar earthquake, they lost some 2,400 human lives and around 11,000 were injured. As against that, this time there are only 9 deaths reported so far, and the number of injured people is also 800 or 900. So this is just because of the effort that the Taiwanese government and the people have made in developing an earthquake resilient society.
Can I also at this moment ask you, Mr. Gupta, we're talking about the effort and the kind of seismologistic network that Taiwan boasts of. The fact of the matter is that today a lot of people did not get the alert from their early warning system. That is
This
also a
is
huge concern.
that is definitely a failure for forecasting the likelihood of arrival of the damaging waves. You see, earthquake early warning system works on the principle that the destructive waves uh, travel with one half of the speed of the main waves. So main waves are used to locate the earthquake. So suppose the earthquake has occurred 100 kilometers from you. So the main waves travel with a speed of 7 kilometers per second. It will take 14 seconds, whereas the surface wave which do the destruction, they will take twice that much time. Also, now with the number of seismic stations spread all over the world, an earthquake is located within 5 seconds of its occurrence. So with this information, you give that earthquake early warning that in next 25 seconds, you are likely to get waves which will be destructive. So you can take the precautionary measures to cut down on the possible damage that would have happened in case that alert was not there. For example,
Yeah.
the moving vehicles, the trams, the escalators, etc., etc., they
Yes.
all come to the halt. All the fire connections, etc., are switched off. So the secondary damage would have happened
Yeah.
is stopped by that. But that did not happen in this
Is
particular
reduced.
earthquake.
Yeah, that is something, of course, Taiwan would have to look into and check into the algorithm that failed there. But quickly, let me also ask you, Mr. Gupta, the fact is that Taiwan is located and the Hualien city is closer to the ring of fire, as it is called,
Yes.
which is prone and more vulnerable to earthquakes. But there are also concerns about, factors like climate change contributing to it, the kind of ecological imbalance that's there. Is it a big factor, or are we just reading too much into it?
Well, it is not yet established, and earthquakes have been occurring. The number of earthquakes which occur, amount of energy release is more or less is the same on a long-term basis. So I don't see, and please, Sasha, please also understand. You see, we talk very loosely about the magnitude of an earthquake. A 6 magnitude earthquake releases energy equivalent to one Hiroshima or Nagasaki kind of a bomb. When you go from 6 to 7, the
Okay.
energy release is 31 times more. When you go from 7 to 8, 31 times more. So from 6 to 8, 31 into 31 means almost 1,000 times bigger earthquake and 1,000 bombs going one after another in a short span of time. So the energy release is tremendous. And in case you have structures which are not properly built, that is what happens. And this is an area where a lot of work needs to be done globally. Uh, as I mentioned somewhere else, on 2005, we had the Muzaffarabad earthquake, which was on the boundary of India, Pakistan in Kashmir. That was about the same size as
Yes.
today's Taiwan earthquake. And you know how many lives were lost? 87,000 human lives were lost in that earthquake. Similarly, we had Sichuan earthquake in 2008, again the same magnitude. And China has done quite a bit of it, but not enough. And that earthquake also claimed some 70,000 plus human lives. So this is a very big achievement of
These are big
Taiwan.
numbers, Mr. Gupta, which leads me to my next question. The fact is that Taiwan is used to such earthquakes. It has its network and arrangements in place more than perhaps other countries across the world because they are so used to earthquakes like this frequently. But my last question to you then, where are countries going wrong? Because the buildings have been damaged here in Taiwan. Can we do something about it? Or is it nature's wrath that we can't do much about, even if we build better structures?
You see, there are some fundamental things which have to be taken care of. Most of the damage takes place because of soil liquefaction. Soil liquefaction is a phenomena that there are pores in the earth and the pores have fluid. So when there is a rapid movement, these fluids come out and the earth starts behaving in that part like a jelly. So suppose your foundation of the house is just 10 feet deep and 20 feet of the top gets liquefied. Your house would not sustain. That's why it is very important to determine that what is the liquefaction zone in the place where you are building a house. And you will see that houses and buildings in Japan, a 40-story building will have uh, 10 stories underground. And that is just because you are taking a foundation below the liquefiable zone. So I'm just telling you of one thing, but there are a number of techniques which make it better to be able to resist this. And many of these are used in Taiwan. That's why with the 7.3 or 7.4 magnitude earthquake which has occurred today, you don't see the kind of destruction that you would have seen in most other parts of the world.
Yeah, that is an important point, Mr. Harsh Gupta. Thank you very much. We'll leave it there. And thank you very much for joining us and helping us get a perspective on what exactly happened in Taiwan and how we ourselves can strengthen here our readiness for earthquakes and natural calamities. Thank you very much, sir.